Welcome to this special edition of WorkSpan TV. I'm Ryan Johnson. Today I'm in the studio with author Buddy Hobart, who's also the founder and the president of a company called Solutions 21. Buddy wrote a book called Gen Y Now. We're going to talk about Generation Y in today's workforce. We're also going to talk about how to reward and retain these new workers to the workforce. And Buddy, thanks for coming in today.
Thanks for having me, Ryan. I really appreciate it.
First of all, Buddy, let's talk about definitions. I'm sure a lot of people watching the video are probably familiar with the term the boomers and Generation X, but tell us a little bit about Generation Y and why we should care about this generation.
Well, it's the largest generation out there by far. I think people understand the boomers, the Xers, and Gen Y. There are 77 million boomers and 79 million Gen Y. And the reason why I think people need to care is they're our workforce of the future. They are the folks who by 2025 will make up 75% of the world's workforce.
Obviously, this is a large cohort coming into this workforce, Buddy, but what about the other generations in the workforce? Why should we pay particular attention to this one?
Gen Y is going to be who replaces, as we come out of the recession, who is going to be replacing the workforce moving forward. So as companies begin to start hiring again, it's going to be Gen Y talent that is going to be fueling the recovery.
One of the chapters in your book talks about some of the myths that are associated with this generation, like they're job hoppers or they value instant gratification, things along those lines. Why don't you spend a minute talking about a few of these myths and what we can learn from them as employers?
What Gen Y wants is not instant gratification. They want real-time feedback. They don't want, and by the way, with feedback, we don't mean pats on the back feedback, which is what we baby boomers tend to think that they want. That's not what they want. They want to know where they stand in real time, and they don't want to wait 12 months to find out what's going on. So the myth is that they want constant kudos, and that's just flat not true. They want to know where they stand, how they can be better, why what they're doing is linked to the overall strategic plan of the organization. One of the other major myths that we have to overcome with Gen X and baby boomer managers is the fact that Gen Y somehow will quit in an instant. Now, they will have more jobs than most folks. There's no question about that. The recession slowed that down a bit. But they're not looking to leave. Interestingly enough, they're looking for reasons to stay. And when organizations don't align their HR practices from start to finish and create that constant stream to retain that cohort, what happens is you create a self-fulfilling prophecy.
So we've dealt with some of the myths about this generation, and you also have a chapter in the book that talks about some of the strengths or the skills that this generation brings. Just inherently because of the time that they live in. Can you spend a minute talking about some of those?
Not only do they understand the global economy, not only have they grown up in a global marketplace, they understand the diversity of that global economy. So it's just not a intellectual exercise. They've kind of lived it. So I think they bring that huge strength to the marketplace. Another one that is readily apparent is that they've grown up forever with technology. So their understanding of it, their implementation of it has been there in their entire lives. One of the challenges we see, though, Ryan, is that bosses and businesses tend to what we call damn that with faint praise. So, of course, they have that technological skill. Instead of embracing it and leveraging it strategically, they kind of dismiss it.
One of the interesting things that I saw in your book was you said that this generation may be looking to lease a job and not own it. Talk a minute about what you meant by that.
When I graduated from college in 1981. So I started out, my first job was with Xerox. I find it almost humorous that one of my questions in my final interview was asking about the retirement plan. I mean, you know, I was 22 years old. I fully intended to retire from there. It's what my parents did. It's what I thought I would be doing. And so as Xerox was giving me a job offer, in my mind, I was buying it. I was buying Xerox. I was going to be there for the duration. And it's very different for Gen Y. They lease the job, just like you would lease a car. So you get a 2, 3, 4, 5-year lease, whatever that is. And you're looking to see if you like it, if it's going to work for you. It's a temporary arrangement, and it's a very transactional arrangement.
So obviously everything that we've talked about so far is going to have implications for how companies attract, motivate, and retain this generation of workers. Let's run through each of those. Talk about how companies are going to effectively recruit or attract this generation.
If we're going to attract and retain Gen Y, we need to focus on giving them interesting and meaningful work and realizing that it's not just that individual we're communicating with. We're communicating with every individual that individual communicates with. And I think that businesses need to make sure that their hiring managers, make sure that their recruiters are really attuned and aligned to Gen Y by confronting their own prejudices. It'll show through. It'll show through in the interview process. It'll show through as you're onboarding folks. So I think that's another key element. Finally, I think that then we look at all of the things you're familiar with, the onboarding process, the compensation, the rewards, and then we get our managers aligned from a leadership standpoint on how to lead this new generation of followers.
In terms of total rewards and in terms of rewarding this generation, are they about more than just compensation? I mean, I think you've alluded to this a little bit already.
One of the biggest rewards that businesses miss is trust. You know, Gen Y looks at the job assignments they get, at the way they have to report back on them, at how willing a boss is to sit and discuss it with them. All of that is trust. The next is flexibility, but I don't think that flexibility means the same thing to Gen Y as it means to Gen X and baby boomer managers. What they're really saying is that presence, my sitting here and you actually physically being able to see me at my desk, in no way, shape, or forms mean I'm actually working. And one of the biggest issues that I see Gen X and baby boomer managers needing to get around is that piece of our past, that in order to be working, you needed to be present at an office location. That's not what Gen Y is saying at all. They're saying that trust that I will be getting the work done, whether I am sitting here where you can physically see me, or whether I am working at a coffee shop, or whether I have my laptop open at a park. I joke with managers often as we're working in their organizations to get them aligned, is that if they have a baby boomer manager at 2 o'clock in the afternoon in Starbucks, they're having coffee. If we have a Gen Y-er in Starbucks at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you may be getting some of the best work product you're ever getting. So we just have to look at that term flexibility a little bit different. So I think trust, I think flexibility, and as I've said before, meaningful and interesting work is critical to Gen Y. The pushback that we often get on that is, well, sometimes not everything is fun and exciting work. I mean, sometimes we just have, mundane tasks to do. The piece of advice I would offer there is that timeless leadership. Take a moment and explain the why, W-H-Y, of the task.